gentlemen, hello, and welcome to Nerdy for 30, the podcast where we talk about nerdy-ish things for 30-ish minutes. My name is Kevin Bauer. With me, as always, is my co-host, Tim Keck, and today we are talking about Baahubali. This movie is a blast. We are so excited to get to it. And I just want to say up front, we're going to be asking for a few more recommendations at the end of the episode today. So stick around. This was recommended to us by listeners to our RRR episode. We could not have been more happy to get that recommendation. We would love to get some more later on today. Tim, what did you think of Baahubali?
I think it was great. Isn't it Baahubali? Isn't that what they were? That's what they were saying the whole time during the movie. Which version did you watch? Because I logged into Netflix and there's like four versions of this movie. There is, wait, let me see. So this is a conundrum I had. So there's a Hindi version, there's an English version, there's a Tamil version, and there's a Malayalam version.
Okay.
So four different versions on Netflix. Not like different choices you can make when you select the movie, four different movies. The English one is about 20 minutes shorter than the others. So I watched the Tamil version. I'm very curious what that 20 minutes that's missing from the English version is. Did they just cut a whole song? Did they cut a whole scene? Why is it 2:17 and everything else is 2:39? Doesn't make any sense to me.
What's funny about that to me is that I chose my version because I looked it up and I saw that the Telugu version was like 3 minutes longer than the Tamil version. And I was like, well, I want to watch the longest version of this movie possible. Like, I don't want to miss anything. I didn't look up the English runtime, but I did actually go back and forth between those three versions. I started with Tamil, and then I watched most of it, I would say, in Telugu. And then I was like, I'll check out. Let me just see how the English dub is. I don't do it. Absolutely don't do it. They got I think it's like mostly anime voice actors, and it's just not the same. I'm sorry, it's just not as good. So
You've got Vegeta like
I did
playing
think
8 characters.
I thought that the guy playing Bahubali was I thought that it was the guy that voices All Might in My Hero. It's not. It turns out it's the guy who's like the protagonist of Attack on Titan. But still, I want to
Yeah.
dive right into it. There's no reason to watch anybody doing a dub over this because if you do that, you're missing out on the full performance from this dude Pravas. Wow. I didn't realize that RRR was missing anything until I saw this guy, and I was like, he is the only thing that I can imagine adding to RRR. He is
Huh.
just charm incarnate.
I didn't like him as much.
Are
I'm
you
not sure
serious?
why. I saw him and I was like, this is a step down from RRR. It becomes pretty clear right away in this movie that it's no RRR.
Agreed.
It's definitely not. It is a good movie. I enjoyed it a lot. The budget wise, I think it's like half the budget of
Mhm.
RRR. RRR the shoot was like a whole year. So it's definitely not even close as far as production's concerned. I don't like the lead as much as the leads in RRR, except when they did like the time skip backwards and he's playing his father, I guess.
Mhm.
He was great in that. And I thought he was like so charismatic and incredible in that role. But the present day one, I wasn't as excited about as the other guys. He wasn't bad. He's just the RRR relationship I enjoyed so much more, and I enjoyed those protagonists more. But you think what was it about this guy that you were going crazy over? What was his charm offensive to you?
This guy has the perfect combination of sweetness and being ripped out of his mind. This guy's body is insane. I really want to see this guy shirtless next to Chris Hemsworth. Like, I need a Marvel superhero to be able to compare him against. I have no idea how to like benchmark his size, but he looks huge. Like, he looks absolutely massive. I'm talking even in like the opening scenes where he's just like trying again and again and again to climb up the mountain. Um, and then he like there is this tangible sweetness to him that Beam from RRR had. Like he has that like You just like him immediately.
Hmm.
But something about Probus, it's like when women like a goofy guy, he is the best case scenario for what that goofy guy is like. Like he is what they have in mind when girls are like, I like a guy that knows how to be goofy.
Wow. I guess I didn't see it that way, but he's like kind of goofy, I guess. Um, I don't know. It just didn't he didn't rub me the right way. To the Avengers to the body point,
Uh-huh.
there are scenes where he looks ripped out of his mind, like a perfect specimen. And then I thought it was interesting, like in the Marvel movies, they like protect those guys. You know what I'm saying? Jason Momoa is like has to do a lot of work to look as ripped as he does in that one shirtless scene in Aquaman, right?
Hmm.
And I remember I saw some interview with him where he's like, you know, we did some camera tests and I wasn't getting the pump I needed, so I chugged a Guinness and all my veins just like popped and we got the shot. You know, like all these actors in America do this. This guy probably did that for a few scenes, and then the rest of the movie he's also shirtless, and there's scenes where he just looks like a normal guy to me, where I'm just like, because like that, like people don't actually look like that all the time. So so when he's not like posed perfectly, he just looks like kind of like a more regular dude. And I thought that was fascinating that they were just like, yeah, no, it's okay, it's okay for him to just look like a guy in these scenes, and then in other scenes he's going to be ripped out of his mind. I mean, I thought it was fascinating for whatever reason. His the way they handled his physique in this was very interesting and very un-American, I think. In a maybe in a good way.
That is interesting. That I there's something that's like there's definitely something that's more impressive about that because it's like it feels more like maybe they did this without steroids. There are absolutely some shots in Captain America the Winter Soldier, which is like, a top tier MCU movie. There's a scene where Chris Evans, Anthony Mackie, and Scarlett Johansson are like kind of formulating their plan. I think they're crashing at Sam Wilson's house to like figure out their next steps. And it's just supposed to be Captain America cleaning himself up and like Black Widow like taking a shower and just kind of putting on some fresh clothes so they can like come at this with a clear head. And in this scene that's just supposed to be them casually in a house in t-shirts, they are the most yoked human beings I've ever seen in my life. Their traps are insane. Like they have like full on professional. It's like the Juggernaut costume in X-Men where it's just like this like dome from their shoulders to the tip of their head. It's crazy. And he doesn't look like that. He looks
He's
like
leaner.
yeah, he's leaner, but it's like I don't know, it looks real. It doesn't look like one of those shots where it's like perfectly lit and you can see the perfect amount of like definition under Jason Momoa's pecs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's an interesting. Yeah, I really want to see more movies, and we need some recs
Mm,
for Indian films that are not from this director, because I'm noticing trends between this and RRR, and I can't tell if these are like regional trends or act or like tropes, or if this is just the way the director operates.
mm,
Because the lead is very similar to RRR. His like relationship and his journey is very similar to RRR. It feels like he loves these like hero, like kind of like cast out, like making a comeback, overcoming this like obstacle, this like destined hero, thing. Uh, and I love it. I also think we have to talk about the CGI in this, which is absolutely fascinating. It is so bad and so awful, and yet so beautiful at the same time. It is it's mind blowing. Like there's a very right at the beginning, there's like the woman standing in the river, and she's very clearly on a green screen, like just standing on dry land. But then there's like this footage of this raging river over her, and it looks so shitty. But like the shot of the river, it's like absolutely beautiful, and like then the story is great and it makes sense. It just seems like there's so many spots where like if the technology was better, he would have knocked it out of the park. It's like a proof of concept. It's like the kind of thing you show the editor before they like actually do the thing. It's fascinating. Like his eye for these things is so good, and the attention to detail in this stuff is so good, while simultaneously being held back by technology in the most brutal way. It's it's hilarious and fascinating at the same. Like it's fascinating. I because it doesn't look like shit. It's just it's like technology. It's holding him back. You know?
Yeah, and it depends on the shot. So, I mean, I love it. Like I was thinking about this and somebody dropped this as a comment on the RR video too, which was that uh it's the fact that it's entirely driven by the story. I adore the fact that they did not necessarily have the budget to pull this movie off in a way that looked competitive with, like, I don't know, when you go to see the scenes in Zodiac that are CGI that you would never know are CGI, like that kind of passive money dumped into that kind of stuff. They did it anyway because the story is important and it doesn't matter if it's like, yeah, we can tell that this is like a stock photo tree that's kind of been dropped in as a layer above this like other backdrop and then
Yeah.
somebody's green screened on top of it because the entire like what's being built from those pieces is so cool that you just stop caring. And I think that's one of the things we talked about a lot with RRR is that like there's a look to RRR and Bahubali that we've seen that isn't what we're used to. And I think it's just that like, yeah, the story is king and they're not letting any kind of technical limitations stop them from telling exactly the story that they want to tell. And I love that attitude. I It's also exactly like what you said with the proof of concept, man. It's like that has to be this and the sequel have to be what got him greenlit for RRR. He did a lot better with the effects on that. I think to date, I looked it up today. I think RRR is still the most expensive Indian movie ever made. Just keep giving this man money. Do whatever you have to do to get SS Rajamouli. Just give this man all the money in the world.
Get him in the MCU. Just do it. Did you see that?
Please.
Did you see that clip with him talking to James Cameron and James Cameron being like, "Oh my god, I love you. You're the best. Your story is so good. You have all these characters." And it's like, yeah, if James Cameron could insert like even just a hint of RRR into Avatar, we'd be lining up to go to those movies. Like he
Oh
just
my
doesn't.
God.
James Cameron just doesn't understand character the way that SS does. It's it's fascinating. He's so good. I mean, it's really amazing the story they're telling. I did also with like the CGI thing because it all looks so beautiful. Did you have the little CGI emblem pop up in the bottom left whenever they showed a CGI animal?
Yeah.
Like I noticed it first with like the bullfight, and I was like, I thought it was so funny because they're like, "Hey, just so you know, this is fake." And I was like, "Oh, there was never a doubt in my mind that this was fake. This is the fakest looking bull I've ever seen in my life." But I was also like, "It's beautiful." I just kept just thinking. I thought that some of the CGI was like gorgeous and so fake. Like the bull looked great, but it didn't look like a real bull. And I just there's a consistency in the shittiness that kind of lets you gloss over it and ignore it because it's consistent and it's intentional and it's a through line in the movie and it works somehow. I don't know. I thought the CGI thing for the animals was fascinating. That's what they had one where like a horse like lay down and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's a real horse. I don't know why they threw the CGI on this. Also, a horse can fall over. You can do a bit where a horse falls over. No one's gonna be upset if the horse lies on its side for a second. People, that's fine.
Dude, that horse was laying on people. I'm more worried for the people in that scene because I know exactly what scene you're talking about. It's when he pushes the horse onto the people. Um, oh my God. It's yeah, it's interesting. I That's something I thought about with like animated movies before too, where it's like there are so many movies that have CGI that stands out so much because the movie has such a high budget. It's shot with such wonderful cameras that like you can tell exactly what the CGI aspect is. But then there's something to like, if you just do the entire movie in CGI, it wouldn't matter and everything would match. But like there's like a style that comes out of this where it's the blend that is like a cool thing unto itself. And I really dig it.
It's really fun. And the first half of the movie, or the first part, like 2/3 of the movie, it kind of has this look, and I was like, okay, this is interesting, this is fine, they're doing this story, and I liked it. Then they go back in time, and I loved it. The last like hour of this movie was no notes, just incredible, just absolutely incredible, and I loved it. And I was like kind of bummed we're coming back to the main story, to be honest, because it's like, oh yeah, it seems like there were some budgetary constraints in the first half, and it's like, no, they were putting all of their time and energy into the big war scene, which looked awesome. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but it looked incredible. The ideas exhibited in this, like for the fighting and stuff, were so good. The sheets flying and catching fire, and like the imagery was so good. The weapons were neat. The fighting was incredible. I was like, this is awesome. I don't think up until that point I was like, oh, this is a real notch below RRR. And then afterwards, it's like, oh no, this is a legit action film. This is awesome. It was amazing. By the end of the movie, I was like, this is amazing. Sign me up. I want more. It's so good.
Dude, right there with you. First half, some of the fight scenes, I was like, huh, this just doesn't go as hard. Like there's some kind of cool things happening, just does not go as hard. That back third. I mean, also like interesting choice. I'm wondering, so was this like, do you know, was this filmed as one big thing? Did he film one and two back to back?
I thought so. I mean, it
Okay.
ends it ends with, part two, like
Yeah.
it's called The Beginning. I'm pretty sure this was always intended to be two parts.
I mean, it has to be because that
Yeah.
like the cliffhanger at the very end is bananas. That's another thing that I want to comment on. I think we should get in like some formal thieves at this point.
Yeah. Let's do
Um,
some thieves and beefs.
uh, biggest thief that came to mind while watching this. This guy has such a gift for pairing up characters, for like quickly making you feel things about characters and then putting them in situations that rips your fucking heart out. I was thinking about how in the very beginning it's like, um, what's the dude's name? Katapa. It's like we find out this is the most loyal guy. Like this guy's entire thing is
Yes.
loyalty, and
Ugh.
he's trying to save the woman, and he's ordered. His whole thing is he's loyal to his king. He's ordered to kill her, and it's like fucking hell. They did the exact amount, like the exact perfect amount of setup to teach us just how insanely dedicated this man is. And then he's ordered to do something that is the polar opposite of what he wants to do. It's beautiful. Same thing in the very end when it turns out that he is. First off, when it looks like he's gonna fight Baahubali, it's like fuck. And then when it turns out that he killed his dad, that last image, you're like,
Yeah.
no, what
What is
happened?
that? I have to know what happens.
I
I have to
know.
know what happens. Which I think we're going to do part two next week, right? Did we say that already?
We got to go right into it.
Because I
Yeah, I
can't
want
wait.
to.
I can't wait. I have to watch it now. We're skipping whatever plane we were going to do. We're going Baahubali 2. I can't wait. I have to know what happens with this dad thing. Why did he do it? Why did he do it? It's crazy.
I mean,
Uh
it had to be that he got ordered to, right? Like his entire
must
thing.
have been. It must have been an order or a good of the kingdom type thing. It seems to be like that's the only thing. That's the loophole with all these things. I protect the crown, I protect the king. Well, what if there's a new king? Then he's got to do what he's got to do to protect him. I mean, who knows? I mean, it's great. What'd you think of the it was the mom, right, that he rescued
Yes.
in the
Yeah.
square? uh I thought she was fascinating and all run down and beat up and collecting all these sticks, and I was like, this is whatever. And then she gives this monologue about throwing this guy on the pyre, like a bed of fire. I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. We're gonna get that, right? That's 100% gonna happen. There's
Dude,
no
we
way it
have to.
doesn't.
She didn't get handed the torso at the end of the battle like she wanted. Like we have to. We have to get something. Like 10 minutes into this movie, I turned to Lauren and I was like, every single woman in this movie is a complete and total badass. Like it's just like there are so many scenes in this, just in the first one, where like it'll be like a woman holding an infant and fighting somebody off with a knife.
Yes. I think the opening scene is this woman holding a baby and she pulled an arrow out of her own back to
Yeah.
use as a weapon to kill somebody else and then takes their sword off their dead body to kill another guy all before and she dies because she stood in a river holding a baby over her head forever until he could be rescued. Like these are legendary women, which I will say is a beef of mine. It is a beef.
Interesting.
No, not
Interesting segue.
his his love interest in this. Cool, fine. They do this little song where they're together and they're in love and it's beautiful. And now it's like your mission is my mission. I'm gonna go do this alone. And I don't know if I get it. It seems like an old fashioned type of storytelling where it's like, hey, I'm a badass, you're a badass, I'm a man, so I'm gonna go do this thing. You wait here, you hang back. And I was like, I don't know, you can use her. Shouldn't you be doing this together? I wanted them to partner up, right? In RRR, it seems like maybe he like redeems himself with that but it's like two guys partnering up against the world. And this,
Mhm.
because it's a man and a woman, the man's taking the lead and the woman's hanging back, which I was like, this is a little, it negates some of the badassery from her if she's just, waiting at home,
Yeah.
which I was like, why? Why? She can help with this. You need everyone you can get. What is she doing? I guess she's convincing her crew back home that her boyfriend's got it. And she just goes back to them and she's like, yeah, trust me, this guy I just met, he's awesome. He's gonna get that girl we've been trying to get back? That woman we've been trying to get back for like 20 years? Yeah, this guy I just fucked in the woods, he's gonna get the job done. And they're like, real? They're like, oh wow, okay. Yeah, he sounds great. She's like, yeah, it was awesome. We sang, we tried on different clothes. I drugged him with these flowers. It was wonderful. It was fabulous.
The flower thing was alarming. She did not have to reach very far. That thing was just right there.
No,
Like if he
it's
had
right
fallen
there.
differently, he would have passed the fuck out. He was like 6 inches away from just a long nap. Oh man.
Also, that art he was drawing on her, that didn't go anywhere. So he would like tattooed her against her will. He's like permanently marking her. I'm like, this is weird. It's just weird. It's very this is a musical. This is driving home my idea that these movies are just musicals because that's the only way these things make sense, you know? You have a musical and there's a flower and it's like right next to you because like theater dictates that it needs to physically be there next to you, but really it's in this field and whatever, like theater has this way of like, because of the constraints of the stage, everything is so convenient physically in a way that it shouldn't be for the story. But that seems to happen here, and it seems to happen in RR a little bit. And it's fun. And like, again, it's like consistent. These aren't like mistakes. It's not like, whoa, why is that flower so close? It's crazy on its own, but it also makes sense for the rest of the story because like that's how they did it. They just go to this, they just have a complete dream sequence where they're like making hooking up in beautiful outfits, trying on outfits, and then it just cuts to them back in their regular clothes, like ready to fight these guys, which causes an avalanche, which he with his bare hands peels peels like bark off just a stone, and then they ride in their stone canoe in front of an ocean of falling snow. I mean, this was insane. It was great. I don't know. It was awesome.
I love it.
Great movie.
The whole thing has a tone of like of like a epic poem or like a myth where it's like this like ancient story and it's like and then he fought off 1,000 men. And it's like, okay, well clearly that's metaphorical, like that's just, stands for the difficulty of his efforts, but in this it's like no, he fucking fought off 1,000 men. Like,
Yeah,
there was
there
a
was an
part
avalanche. Stone canoe, yes.
there was a part in the final battle, like the huge battle, where he had like a bunch of guys piled on top of him and he broke free in like a very like anime style scene, and it was one of the better moments of CGI in the movie. There was a shot that I think was done practically, and I was watching it like, how the fuck did they get this shot? Like, it's very realistic looking, like, I don't know, 12 bodies of grown men like being flung from one central spot. And I was just thinking, like, how the hell did you do that? Like,
And they got there because the bad guy was just throwing bodies at him.
yeah. Oh,
So funny.
I just realized I want to watch a making of these so badly. I would
I
love
really
to
do.
watch something about the production.
Be awesome. Apologies, I'm getting over a cold, everybody. But we had to record. I can't miss this. I had to get in here. It the final fight is so crazy. The character work, I think, between the two brothers or step brothers or whatever, or then I guess they're cousins. Two
Mhm.
cousins raised as brothers is so interesting and so good and so blatant when the bad brother just cuts down a bunch of innocent people on his way to like murder these people. It was like I feel like everyone on the battlefield was like, oh, oh good. Like everyone it just like cuts every character like shaking their head in disgust. Like, oh boy, you could have didn't need to do that.
There was the moment in there too where Bahubali's people, like his squad, like threw the bolos,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh shit, so we're all just gonna be killing bystanders now? It was a moment for me to be like, you too? And then, oh, what a great,
E2 Baahubali. Yeah, it was
oh
great. And then
man.
they pick him up and like help him away. It's beautiful.
Uh,
It's a beautiful moment. Gosh.
while we're in
Any
the
beefs for
thieves
you, Kevin?
section, real
Or
quick before we leave
okay.
thieves, I got a question for you. The specifically the back nine of this movie introduced some really cool weapons. What was your
Yeah.
favorite strange weapon that happened?
Oh man. I loved Mace on a chain. I thought chain mace was great. It was so cool. How does he retract it? There's no mechanism for it. It just kind of happens whenever he needs it. It's super fun. It feels like a good like kind of bad guy weapon too. It's not overt, but it's like this isn't a man who's like he's just smashing. He's just
Mhm.
beating. He's blunt force, in combat and in life. He's got a brutality to him, whereas Bahubali's using the spear, he's using the sword, he's using his brain, he's using pieces of the tent. It's just further good characterization, and the weapon's just a great example of his character, and also super cool. And I don't know if I've seen that before, so I love that. That and his like spinny blade on the
Mhm.
chariot, I was like, this is crazy. It was sad, but it was awesome. What about you, Kev? What'd you think?
That was very cool. The one that stood out to me the most was I mean the lion like gauntlet. The fact that
Yes.
like the mouth seemed to open so you could grab stuff was cool. But the one that stood out to me the most was the fact that he went into that battle with a hatchet. You don't see a lot of good guys using hatchets in a fight. And like I saw that and I was like, you're going hatchet. Very interesting. So I can vote hatchet here.
Okay, if I'm describing a character to you and I'm
Mhm.
saying they're dual wielding, are
Mhm.
they the hero or are they the villain? What do
Usually villain, I think.
you think usually the villain?
Yeah, I would say.
Huh. I don't know. I was thinking of like the Patriot, which is like, an action movie, and he had the hatchet and then he had the musket, he had like the gun in one hand and the hatchet, or then he used his pistol and the like dual wielding. That's like a great example of dual wielding. I feel like the hatchet is also like I don't know. It kind of evoked a good guy thing for me too. It's like a more skilled thing. It's more precision. He's like hooking and like just using. It feels like you use your brain a little bit more if you're dual wielding smaller weapons as opposed to larger weapons. But that's interesting. Why do you think it's a villain? Do you have any other like context? Why do you think it's a villainous thing? Maybe for that same reason. It could be like the villain is outsmarting the good guy.
Yeah, I think I guess in mine it's the idea that it's reliance on like two objects. Like I feel like I picture with dual wielding like two small pistols, but I
Hmm.
can't actually think of an example now like when I'm thinking through like more American action movies, I'm thinking of like John Wick with two guns. I guess it's just Keanu Reeves in various movies with two guns is what comes to mind first.
He has all the same guns. But hey, Agent Smith never has two guns.
That's a good point.
I think two guns. I think dual wielding is like a classic good guy trope. It doesn't feel like it, but I'm gonna workshop that. We'll come back to it on the pod.
Yeah, I'm gonna have you do 5 on dual wielding at the end of our
We're gonna need more
Baahubali 2
examples.
episode.
Okay, do you have any other before we wrap it up?
Yeah.
We have to do our rankings. We we have to figure out where this ends up on the list.
Mhm.
So far we have Avatar at the bottom with Megan on the top.
Right.
I got to tell you, I've been sleeping on it. Avatar is a better movie than Megan. I'm there. That's where I am. I've been thinking about Avatar. I liked it. I don't think Megan was as good as I think it was a great in the moment. I think in hindsight, it's not as good a movie. I think Avatar should be above Megan. On my personal rankings, it will be, but for the pod, I get it. Megan's at the top, Avatar's below. Do you have any feedback for me on that?
I mean, on that, just that history will bury you. That'll be inscribed as like a footnote on your tombstone someday.
These rankings are just on my tombstone. Megan at the top. So then the question is Bahubali the beginning better or worse than Megan?
I think. Hmm, I think it's better. I think it's definitely better. I think I'm being clouded in this decision by Megan's potential, and I need to be honest with myself about what it actually was. I have a lot of high hopes for Megan too. But going off of just strictly what Megan actually was on paper, the PG-13 cut at least, I mean, no question, Bahubali is a better movie.
I
Do you agree?
agree. I think Bahubali is at the top of our list now. I'm going to be interested to see where 2 ends up on this. I think we're hung up on Megan's potential. I
Yeah.
think that's where it's been. I don't know if we can revise the list as we go, but that's my take on this, revising the list. It is Megan. We are just so invested. And I feel the same way where I'm like, I am incredibly invested in the Megan character and the Megan idea while simultaneously being like, oh, the movie was okay. Like maybe not as good as I wanted it to be, but a fun movie going experience.
I know, and that's the thing. But I think we need to separate out like the experience of seeing Avatar in IMAX and 3D as well. Because, like, sure, we saw it in IMAX 3D, but what is the mark of a movie as we will decide it? Is it what the experience of seeing it in the theater was like, or is it what the average experience of seeing the movie, both when you first saw it and also all the other times you see it, are, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Avatar has stuck with me much more than Megan did.
Really?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it a lot more. Not all positive, but it's occupied more of my brain space than Megan did since then. And I feel like a similar thing with Bahubali, where I'm like, I've been thinking about it a lot. It's just kind of been in my head, rattling around. I'm excited for part 2. I've been like, I don't know. I've just spent a lot of time thinking about Bahubali. I think it's great. It's like it's got everything. It's got singing, it's got action, it's got a great story, it's got great characters. We need real recs for other directors because I think we might be spoiling ourselves with SS. He's incredible. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely the best characterization of the 3 we've seen, right?
Absolutely. No question. And just like Tim just said, if you're listening to this right now, please, we would love some more recommendations. I think the things that we need to do, correct me if I'm wrong here, Tim, are we need, I think, some Bollywood recs so we can kind of get a feel for Bollywood versus Tollywood and
Yeah.
like what's stylistic there. And then, yeah, we need some recommendations for Tollywood movies that aren't necessarily by SS, just so we can, for all we know, he's like Quentin Tarantino and other people are
Yeah.
like Wes Anderson out there. Like we don't have a frame of reference yet. So any help there would be greatly appreciated. Tim, anything else you want to say about this one?
That's it. Love this movie. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned. Bahubali 2 next week.
Stay nerdy, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Stay nerdy.